material in it. So without further ado, Congressman Issa is a successful businessman, entrepreneur, former Army captain, and now leader of the conservative resurgence that is really sparking up in Southern California. I have firsthand knowledge. Great things are happening. People are angry. They've gone from fearful to concerned to angry, and things are happening. I assure you, good stuff's coming out of California, and we will bring that state back, especially with the leadership of Congressman Darrell Issa. Please welcome him.
This feels like Reagan country. Tim, thank you very much. It's not often I get an introduction that doesn't read from my old bio, and it's really enjoyable not to talk about what I did in the past, but to talk about what we're doing here today. This is an exciting time for conservatives. Scarcely a year ago, there was questions about whether or not our ideas were out of favor, whether or not change was a change very different than the one that's being talked about here today. Today, however, we are watching a movement that promises us that, in fact, the American people are with us. They want the ideas that made this country great and strong. The experiment in liberty that George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison conceived of over 230 years ago has stood the test of time, and today is in vogue like never before. Please feel free. Now, as Tim said, I have the honor of overseeing the Watchdog Committee of Congress. Now, some would say that the chairman of that committee oversees it, but the chairman of that committee is the party of the Speaker, the party of the President, and the party that, in fact, is not going to oversee itself. It's going to, well, basically apologize for this president, to spin for this president. So I'm the luckiest man in Washington. I'm lucky in a strange way. I'm lucky that the presidential candidate I didn't vote for, in fact, got elected. Now, that kind of luck I can do without. And as Dick Cheney said to this group the other day, this is a one-term president we trust. But our standard that has sustained us for 230 years is a standard of checks and balances. And so I'm honored that at a time in which the party of the majority and the party of the president has ideas very different than those here, very different than the ideas that allowed us to survive and come out of the Depression, which was free market and private enterprise, the policies that allowed us to defeat the Soviet communism and to end it once and for all, which of course was strong national defense. The party and the principles that allowed us to be a shining light of liberty around the world, not in fact a collective for the greater good, willing to co-opt our ideas in order to fit in an ever more socialistic world. As a young kid growing up in a working class neighborhood in Cleveland, Ohio, there we go, a little bit for Cleveland, please. You know, I always take something from Dan Lundgren, which is that he said when he was running for governor in California, they knew why the pioneers kept moving west. And by the way, it wasn't the great parks, the great museums, the great educational capabilities that drove them from Cleveland. It was just the weather. And those of you who've gone for a walk today on the snow-filled sidewalks here know there's a reason that this place is not always a warm swamp. And in the era of global warming, we've had 4 of 14 of the worst snowstorms since 1870. Perhaps when the hot air leaves this town, that's what happens. But the opportunities that I had, even though I left in my senior year of high school to go to the Army and didn't get a high school diploma and got a GED, the Army scholarship and the opportunity to graduate from college, be commissioned, learn skills that have worked for me throughout my business career and today are still being used here in Congress. All of that comes because in this country, all one needs is a belief in our principles and a willingness to work, and the opportunities have always been there and will always be there. Before you leave, I would ask you all to provide a few dollars to the Metro or the cabs here and go down to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and then go up to the nation's capital. Our founding fathers knew that, in fact, what would oversee our government was the House of the People, the Congress, a place where every 2 years we go back and we face you, the voters. We go back and ask you how we're doing. And we're so often told, quite rightfully, we should do better. And do better we will. This administration needs the scrutiny of my committee. I've been privileged to lead a group of individuals, not to be the leader, but to lead this group of individuals who have done great research, who have leveraged our capabilities with capabilities around the country, with people who have done the things they should do, blew the whistle as former Acorn people on wrongdoing of Acorn, dug in the dumpsters in San Diego to find 50,000 pages of documents intended to be destroyed, but unfortunately left in an unlocked dumpster. We here today are here to a great extent for this panel to talk about the wrongdoing of Acorn. But before that, I want to talk very specifically about this president. This president would have you believe that, in fact, he inherited a great deal, and that he is here today and doing the people's work to change America for the better, and that he works for you. He would have you believe that. But I would say 1 year after the stimulus of $787 billion without a single Republican vote, that his policies are not only failed, but you can begin to see a pattern in his policies. The pattern in his policies are very clear. They're for the unions, they're for the Democratic machine, they're for the liberal agenda. And I'm going to give you a case in point. My investigators have done what investigators do. They've searched through to see, well, what is it the president is really committed to? Where were his real campaign promises? So I would ask you to take a moment and look at this video and then see if the video doesn't answer exactly what's going on here in Washington.
You know you've got a friend in me, and I definitely welcome Acorn's input. You don't have to ask me about that. I'm going to call you, even if you didn't ask me. When I ran Project Vote, voter registration drive in Illinois, Acorn was smack dab in the middle of it. Once I was elected, there wasn't a campaign that Acorn worked on down in Springfield that I wasn't right there with you. Since I've been in the United States Senate, I've been always a partner with Acorn as well. I've been fighting with Acorn, alongside Acorn, on the issues you care about my entire career.
Every major bill this Congress has sent to the president has been loaded with kickbacks, payoffs, and earmarks designed to reward liberal special interest groups, labor unions, and political allies of the Democratic Party. That is undeniable. But what is also undeniable is, yes, Acorn is at the center of it all. The most important thing that you're going to hear on this panel today is not about a question of the left or the right. It's going to be about an organization, Acorn, who as an ally of the Service Employee International Union and a number of other unions we've now uncovered that are directly working with them, they have formed a criminal enterprise. In my report last year, I asked the question, is Acorn intentionally structured as a criminal enterprise?